It's the 10th anniversary of the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. It's our second round of 9 for 2024. It's MotoAmerica Superbikes at Barber in Birmingham, Alabama at the famed Barber Motorsports Park. As PJ Jacobsen awaits the start of this race, it's Supersport time. And welcome everybody to a beautiful day for racing, and welcome to the broadcast booth. I'm Greg White, standing alongside two-time national champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, we've had a couple races at Road Atlanta so far this season, and PJ Jacobsen on a new team showed up and just beat on everybody.
Yeah, well, we saw the Rahal team at Daytona, and things didn't look as good. And some organizing, some reorganizing there. That team came out strong. PJ Jacobsen, who we've seen all over the place, winning superbike races and such, dominated there. And these are those highlights. Matthew Scults came from a long way back in race number 1, Greg, but you see the 15. He started to figure out that he needed to get to the front and stay there. Blake Davis was also a big player in Atlanta. As you see these three guys coming down to the line for the final time, PJ would take the win in race number 1, barely defeating Blake Davis there, as you see. In race number 2, it was a little bit of the same. This time the weather was going to play a huge factor in this, as you see Corey Alexander also in this mix on the 23, another Rahal rider, and Jake Lewis. But again, PJ Jacobsen showed the skill and what a veteran he is in coming out with 2 wins there in Atlanta to start the season perfect.
Now, we thought coming here there might be some rain in the forecast. It's here, it's kind of around, but right now we're under dry conditions. But one rider to look at, of course, is Matthew Scults, who spent the last several years in the superbike category, now in Supersport. But Jay, the one thing about Matthew Scults in Barber Motorsports Park, he's the only rider to win a superbike race on a stock 1000. That was all the way back in 2017. But 72% of the time where he has been here at Barber Motorsports Park, he has been on the podium. How crazy is that? And of course, with Matthew Scults, let's take a look at this flashback, JP, because this is one of the craziest things we've ever seen.
Yeah, this was a crazy race that we had in Superbike. You see, he hydroplanes, and I mean, he went 2 football fields here, Greg, just sliding along. And look at him holding onto that clutch lever, trying to keep that bike running. This was a race, Greg, that would see all 3 of our podium finishers actually fall off during the race. He would end up second place behind Cam Peterson that day, and Loris Baz would end up third. But like I said, all 3 of them fell. It was a crazy, crazy day. We don't have that today.
But it's a beautiful day under the sun, and the third member of our broadcast team is Hannah Lopa, and she's down on the grid with Matthew Scults right now.
Greg, it's safe to say the weather is a much better day for racing, to say the least. Matthew Scults, historically, this has been a really successful track to you. Can we say that we could expect to see the same on the Supersport bike this season?
Yeah, I mean, qualifying went pretty well for us. Race pace looks decent. So yeah, just hoping to put the Yamaha R6 up on the box. 18 laps is a long time here, so it's got to keep it cool in the first half of the race and come on strong at the end. I feel that we have the best handling motorbike here. Just got to make sure that we don't get swallowed up by the bigger bikes. But yeah, just going to have to get the elbows up early on. But I'm really looking forward to it.
Best of luck out there. Matthew Scults starting from the front row. I want to talk to one more rider before we get going here. Blake Davis is making his Supersport debut this season, and while he got off to a good start, there's been some learning curves racing around motorcycle racers he hasn't necessarily raced with. Blake, we talked about your expectations last round, and you were saying maybe a top 5 finish, but you're going so well. Would you say you've reevaluated those expectations?
Yeah, I think we can push it up to the podium and maybe even a little bit farther. I didn't have the best qualifying, but I think I'll have pace in the race, and I'm excited to get out there.
Best of luck, Blake Davis, guys.
Well, Barber Motorsports Park is a tricky racetrack. Let's take a look at the track map. And we know that this is a 2.38 mile road course. It's got 7 left-handers, 10 rights. And the thing about this place is the asphalt was new in 2019. It's held up perfectly. It's relatively smooth, but there's a ton of elevation. And on these Supersport machines, there is not a lot of places to rest. But transitioning from our Yamaha track map, let's take a look, Jason Pridmore, at the Insta 360 track lap, because we get a good look at exactly how this track rolls.
Yeah, Greg, as you see, you come up over into this turn 1. It is blind all the way through there. So you got to find a marker earlier in your weekend so that you don't continue to do the same wrong thing over and over. But it's a pretty tricky corner. As you can see, turn 2, a big, long right-hander that has a little bit of a decrease in the middle of it, and then blind over turn 4, which is flat out. Now we're going to get into the back section. Another left-hander that's blind off that back straightaway and very fast. And you can see up over another ice into a very, very long right-hander that you want to make sure that you get your bike set up for a turn like this really good, Greg, because it's towards the end of the lap and there's a lot of different lines you can choose. Then you fling it back over here to the left, and that's going to be bringing you back onto that front straightaway.
Beautiful racetrack here. The Insta 360 track lap. Well, we're going to step away. We're about 4 minutes from a race start. Yeah, that is Maxi Girardo. He's on pole. We'll talk about the grid when we come back.
And our live coverage will continue here on MotoAmerica Live Plus. Here are some highlights from qualifying, Roger.
Yeah, and Max Girardo breaking the outright track record today in qualifying and just got quicker every single lap. And the most important thing when we were watching the qualifying this morning, yeah, he put in that really good lap to get on pole. But the most important, I think, was he was backing those laps up, and he's able to keep doing those good laps. Matthew Schultz talked about the outright lap wasn't is not his best, but he thinks, he's happy to be second, but he thinks his race pace, they can improve on that. So for Matt, really good starting position for him there, right there in third, right where he's going to want to be to put himself in a good spot going into turn 1. And Tyler Scott, we left Friday afternoon thinking, he was the one with the target on his bike going into this first race, was fast, the only other rider into the 25s this morning. He's been really fast, really consistent, and he's going to be one of those guys that's really hard to beat.
As you now take a look at the grid, and all the riders now have their helmets on. They're standing by with their crew. I just heard the horn in the background there. They're going to leave now for the warm-up lap, Roger.
Yeah, and all these riders, you can see the sun, how that's really out, and all these riders now are getting that really good look down into the first turn. They'll be getting this warm-up lap, and they're going to want to see what it's like from where their starting position, because they haven't been where they're setting right now all weekend.
And take a look at the Supersport Championship standings. This is after the first 2 races that were at Road Atlanta. PJ Jacobsen won both of those races, so he has a perfect 50 points. Corey Alexander behind him with 33 points, and already a 17-point deficit. You can see that there's some ground to make up.
Yeah, and a lot of these riders, they're not going to want to let PJ get too far out. I know we only had one complete round, but to this weekend with PJ figuring things out pretty quick, he's going to be tough. So for guys like Matt and Jake Lewis, Blake Davis, who had issues at Road Atlanta, they're going to want to really come out today and start trying to crawl some of those points back.
Even Maxi Girardo, our pole sitter for the first time, he was down there 30 points already behind. As the riders are now out and underway for the warm-up lap, Roger, you'd see this huge field of Supersport riders. We had 48 entries, I believe it was, only 36 spots available on the grid for them. So it's going to be action-packed these first couple of laps.
Yeah, it's going to be busy. This place is really hard to pass as well, as you see where the riders are coming up over right now, up over turn 3, and when they get on the other side of this hill, on the very first lap, it's interesting to watch everybody on the brakes. Right here, you'll see somebody on the inside try to make a dive bomb there early on in the race.
And getting a look one more time at Barber Motorsports Park before they all find their final grid positions and get ready to go racing for the first race here this weekend for them. They'll have another shot at it tomorrow. The coverage will continue. It's now time for Supersport.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is brought to you by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Barber Motorsports Museum, spectacular place to come to watch a motorcycle race, as well as hang out at the museum. Race number 1 for our second round. Let's take a look at the starting grid. Jason Pridmore, where Maxi Girardo goes 1:25.742, a new lap record.
Yeah, Ty Scott was under that lap record too, but it wasn't quite enough. Matthew Schultz third, Jacobsen, David Anthony, what a result for him there starting out, and then Mesa. Then we have Blake Davis, Hobbs, and Jake Lewis. Kayla's back there on in 10th. with Tamburini and Corey Alexander. Then we got Torrin Collins, who was fast this morning. Bickney's Nassini, Max Van, Alfonso Linares. I'm going to keep an eye on that one, Greg, because I'm not sure if he's actually going to be in this one. Mag, Soltis, Silva. Then we have Hunter Dunham, Enriquez, and Owen Williams, Victor Perez, Vandal, Yelton, Grigg, Lucas Silva, and Kevin Horney back there. Then back to row 11, Rivera, Silva, Seathaler, Davis, Joel Ullman, Wyatt Ferguson. So, wow, big grid here, Greg. As you can see, we've got 12 rows, and there's the guy leading the points coming in. He's had a little bit of a rough weekend, Greg. It was a tumble yesterday in qualifying that had everybody concerned. PJ kind of got hung up with his bike and ended up going into a spot of the track that I've never seen anybody get really near a barrier, but so happy to see PJ up and ready to go for this race.
48 riders tried to come here to Barber Motorsports Park and qualify for Supersport. Only 34 grid spots available on this 36 on this racetrack. So here we go. Supersport race number 1 at Barber Motorsports Park. Revs are up. Lights off, and a left-hander off the front straightaway awaits the rest of this field. It looks like it's going to be number 70, Ty Scott, on the Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki, who takes us into turn number 2 first.
And Matthew Scults did not get the start he wanted. You heard him talking to Hannah about not getting shuffled back early, and that's exactly what's happened here to the number 11 at Matthew Scults. Look at he's back at about 5th or 6th as Ty Scott and Gerardo are going to battle down into turn 5 first lap. Gerardo looking to take the lead. He's going to be in really deep though, Greg. We'll see if he can get that bike stopped. Ty Scott's going to cut it back up underneath him. Gerardo's going to do the same thing back, and that's going to be the top pro rider is going to lead his first time in a MotoAmerica race as they head down towards turn 6.
Maxi Gerardo from Uruguay doing a great job, playing it really well down into turn 5 through the middle and out, and he's going to lead us down this back section of racetrack. And Ty Scott's going, what is going on right now? Boy, what a boost for this new top pro team.
Yeah, this top pro team have come into MotoAmerica. What a welcome addition. They've entered a bunch of different classes from Junior Cup with Avery Dreyer all the way to Superbike, obviously with Sean Dillon Kelly, and they have shown that they are here for good. As you see, PJ Jacobson slides up underneath Ty Scott in that very tricky area off the back straight. Also, is that Teague Hobbs in 4th? I believe it is. Teague Hobbs from the 3rd row, Greg. I saw him get a tremendous start. Then you have Mesa and Scults, and it looks like Blake Davis just behind, and you can see there's a good move right there as Mesa gets dropped back just to position. Teague Hobbs holding on to that spot right now in 4th place.
So the 161 of Maxi Gerardo continues to lead the way, but trying to close the gap is that 15, PJ Jacobson on the Ray Hall Ducati Moto with Expel Panigale V2.
I mean, 6/10, Greg, right off the bat, and he's continuing to pull away as they go through turns 1 and 2. Gerardo showing some really good early pace, taking advantage of those new Dunlops while he can out front and hoping that these guys behind him mix it up a little bit.
And the question is, what are the tire options? We had the R5 compound rear and the R7 compound rear available. And we know that Ty Scott went for the harder option rear, as did Blake Davis. But your pole sitter Gerardo on that R5, will it go the full race distance at this torrid pace? Well, that's Maxi Gerardo's getting it done right now.
Yeah, that is the thing. I think Blake Davis is on the R7. Like you say, Greg, we know Ty Scott's on that R7, and Matthew Scults, I think he's on a 5. So we'll have to keep an eye and see how that plays itself out. This guy right now, though, is just out front hitting marks. And Greg, we saw him in the B group session at Daytona this year, and he has just been on fire ever since. He was really fast in Atlanta, and now he's showing the way here. Although it looks like the 2 guys behind him kind of regrouped, gotten themselves together. As Matthew Scults has now found his way past both Teague Hobbs and Mesa on this lap. Matthew Scults making some quick moves for some people here as he gets himself back into 4th place. Then he's going to have to chase down this front-running 3 now. 16 laps to go in this race. Plenty of time for Scults to chip away at what the leader has going on. But, of course, this is Barber Motorsports Park. It's not the most difficult place to pass, but there are very select places where you really want to make that move and be able to make it stick. Down into turn 5 here, this is one of the places where you can pass, but you've got to make it tighty, because if you don't do it, like we saw Gerardo at the beginning on Ty Scott, you can go inside out
and retake the position.
Well, you can see just there between Mesa and Blake Davis. That's going to put Davis down the inside. Blake went up underneath Mesa in 5. Mesa cut it back up underneath him, but the drive that Davis was able to have by using more exit there allowed him to slide up the inside of Mesa as they went into turn 6. So those guys are battling back there. You can see PJ now has actually pulled away from Ty Scott, and Matthew Skoltz has closed up onto the back of the Suzuki rider as they head down that back straightaway. PJ Jacobson red as far as top speed goes on our screen. Fastest first split though is going to go to Matthew Skoltz, as I see here on our board. He is the guy. He's the guy on the move right now. Low 27s, Greg. 27.2, 27.1 for the two guys up front that last time by. I expect to see a quicker one from PJ on this lap.
All right, so PJ closing the gap though on the 161. Maxi Gerardo, our leader, Hannah.
And Greg, Top Pro Motorsports actually had a tire test here prior to Atlanta, so they went with that setup right out of the gate this weekend. Made a little bit of changes here and there. They do not have a working potentiometer, so that was kind of an obstacle, but because Maxi is able to really communicate and he's so in tune with the bike, they were able to kind of work around that. They dialed their setup early yesterday, and the crew chief Thibaut said it's been pretty uneventful all weekend until now, that is, leading these laps.
Yeah, it's pretty eventful, but the question is, what does Gerardo have in reserve as PJ Jacobson continues to close him down? And we expect soon, Jason, that PJ is going to make a bid for the lead, and then we'll see if the 161 can go with him, because at the moment these two have dropped. Ty Scott and Matthew Skoltz and Blake Davis behind him.
Did you notice, Greg, the little bit of spinning that I'm already seeing from Gerardo's bike? There's already some, he's spinning up just a little bit as we hear Shane Maggs has gone down possibly somewhere. We'll keep an eye on that. But for the leaders right now, we're just going to be able to keep an eye on tire. Greg, this is the first time really all weekend where we've seen the sun beating down on the whole track. Yesterday, Friday afternoon and in the morning, it was almost drizzly and cool. The temperatures were a lot lower. So this is also going to be a big test for these guys on tires as far as how they feel, because they're going to be running more laps on these tires than they have under different sunny conditions.
Yeah, tire choice is going to be critical and unknown. And there goes the 11 of Skoltz. So there goes the Strack Racing Yamaha R6. He gets the position for the moment, although Division Wheel M4X Star Suzuki rider, the 70, he keeps signaling to his crew something's going on with the bike. Yep. He keeps tapping the left side of the bike. I'm not really sure what that means from Ty Scott. I'm sure that his crew does. All the while, stalking him back there is a 22 of Blake Davis.
Well, that's twice that Matthews made that pass in that right-left combination that leads you onto the front straightaway, and twice he's been passed back down the front. You can see Ty Scott's really good and tidy as they come into 5. Blake Davis also was in the draft of those two guys as they came down the front straightaway, Greg, and it looked like he was going to make a bid to go by Skoltz also, but wasn't able to make it.
So up front is Gerardo and PJ Jacobson. That has kind of settled down, at least for a couple of corners. And this battle for third between Ty Scott, who continuously goes by start-finish line, where his crew is. If you haven't been to a motorcycle road race before, there's no on-bike communication, there's no rear-view mirrors, there's no way to get information until we go to the area where pit boards are available. And so we know that the front straightaway here at Barber Motorsports Park is that spot. So Ty Scott continuing to let his crew know there's something going on. And Jay, this is what I keep seeing though from Max Gerardo. When he goes down into the bottom sections, when it G's out, it looks like there's a lot of movement in the front for the Uruguayan.
Well, not only that, but the guy you just talked about here, where when you were talking about pit boards, the first person I thought about was PJ. PJ's been able to close that gap down. And if PJ's able to see his board start to show that he's got an increasing gap behind him, so at this stage here, it's 1.7 seconds. PJ's going to know he's got no real threat from the back. He's got a lot of racing to go as they're only on lap 13. PJ's so seasoned, Greg, he's going to be watching what his pit boards are telling him. He's going to know that he's got one guy that he's got to deal with in the front, and as long as that gap doesn't get closer to him, it's really going to allow PJ to run the race that he wants to run.
And out front, Gerardo is not slowing down as we have a rider down. Looks like the 171, 771.
It's Torrin Collins, I believe.
Oh yeah,
so
Torrin Collins.
Torrin
was in
Collins
10th place.
Goes down there in turn 2. So he was, Greg. He was doing a great job. He was the first Altus riders. He was just ahead of his teammate. So Jake Lewis, that is, he was just ahead of him. So top 5 guys though, Greg, are kind of starting to get away here.
Well, like I was mentioning, Jake, Gerardo last time by went 27.0. The 161 did his fastest lap of the race, and he continues in sector number 2 to set his fastest sector 2 time. PJ Jacobson, who's done a 26.9, did 27.1, so only 0.2 off. So it might be a matter now where PJ's going, all right, let me just settle into this pace. But Ty Scott at a 26.7 the fastest rider on the course the last time we came by the start-finish line. And you can see that Ty Scott has figured something out with his GSXR 750, that Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki, pulling away here and there from Matthew Skultz in the 11 and Blake Davis, both Yamaha riders.
Yeah, Ty Scott now is back on the move, and it could have been one of anything as Blake Davis runs the fastest lap of the race now there in 5th place, 26.6. So the 3 riders behind the 2 leaders are all in the 26s, Greg. So number 79 has got a 5-second penalty. Teague Hobbs, who I said got a great start. Maybe he got just a little bit too good of one. His race direction has hit him with a 5-second jump start penalty. So the 3 guys, though, that are chasing the 2 leaders down at the moment, they're all in the 26s. And then you got this big gaggle. Mesa, David Anthony, who's doing a tremendous job, is just behind these guys. You can see Teague Hobbs in front of Corey Alexander. Dave Anthony is just behind Corey. And then you have Roberto Tamburini on the MV Agusta. He is just outside, just 9th place. And then Jake Lewis is going to be 10th with Kayla Yakov. For those of you who are wondering, she's just back there on 11th. You can see that yellow Ray Hall XL Ducati back there just a little bit behind.
And so for you Teague Hobb fans, where you see him on the racetrack, that of course is the number 79 on the timing and scoring screen. He's dropping to 12th place. You'll see that update on the pylon on the left part of your screen. But for us in the booth, we have our timing and scoring screen, so that 5-second penalty is added to the total race time.
Great look at Kayla Yakov, and that team came and tested here, Greg, just before Atlanta. And her and PJ were laying some pretty fast times. I heard it was at a track day, so there were some track day people that got to watch some fast riders. Corey Alexander also was part of that. As you can see, Blake Davis now has got through on Matthew Skultz. So Blake Davis is on his way forward, and it's almost like Ty Scott's trying to drag those guys along with him. Again, the 2 behind now. Ty Scott and Blake Davis were the only 2 in the 26s that time passed.
Maxi Girardo out front by 0.2 of a second. Last time by the speed trap, 141.6. In the draft, Blake Davis on the Yamaha, 143 mile an hour. And of course, Matthew Skultz, he's a little bit larger in stature. He's super skinny, but super tall. Talking about being down just a little bit on speed, 137 when he was getting drafted. So Girardo still leads the way. You can see that that's what 0.2 of a second looks like. PJ Jacobson seems awfully content. 27.1 to 27.2, but Ty Scott continues to set this pace to close the gap at a 126.6. Also Blake Davis, a 126 behind him, a 126.8. But PJ Jacobson looks like he might try a move. Not going to do it here, but he's passed on the switchback, this section of the racetrack. Rolls out of it, leaves a couple of bike lengths. We'll see if Girardo is going to open up. Of course, this is really an opportunity for PJ to get a really good look at our new superstar from Uruguay, Maxi Girardo.
Yeah, but look, Blake Davis has got through, Greg, on Ty Scott. So you can see they've dropped back. So it was probably a big pass somewhere where Blake Davis was able to get to the back of Ty Scott, go past him, 27.4. So they lost a couple tenths to the leaders. As you see Ty Scott's bike back in really bad. He's going to run off the track. He's going to run through the grass. You can see Ty Scott's bike backing in really hard into turn 1. That's going to be his race as far as trying to win this one. It's going to be too far back now, I think, for Ty's 10 laps to go. But that was a big mistake from the number 70 at Ty Scott. So somewhere in that lap, they had lost some time on the leaders.
Yeah, for Max Girardo, PJ Jacobson, 127.2s apiece. Blake Davis, who's now in 3rd spot, goes 127.4. And Ty Scott, before he ran off the racetrack, lost 1 full second, a 128.4 when he was getting past. So the question now is, what's the pace that's going to be comfortable for these 2? And does Blake Davis have enough to start chipping away with 10 laps to go, about 9.5 now on this one, to start chipping away a couple tenths at a time? For Blake Davis, he sees these leaders right up the road, and the fact that he can do the same pace that they're currently going has got to be frustrating. Another look at what happened to Ty Scott.
Yeah, that started going into the corner, Greg. The bike was backing in. He couldn't get it down to the apex where he needed to be, and he knew very early that he was going to run off there. And it's great that we have that run off, that extra little bit of pavement so guys can get their bike slowed down. And you can see Ty Scott was able to get back onto the track. However, on that lap just alone there, Greg, he went 28.4. He went 28.4, still running off the track. So we'll see if he's able to rebound at all and try to get back in that battle for the final podium spot. As you see, Girardo's doing a really nice job. I'm really impressed with how poised this guy is right now, Greg, leading his very first race, feeling the pressure from behind there of PJ Jacobson, but they continue to pull away now.
And if you look at the left part of your screen, our scoring pylon, Blake Davis coming and going. We hear he's having just a slight transponder issues. We'll keep track of that for you. As you can clearly see now, it's going to be Matthew Skoltz down into turn number 5, who gets his Yamaha R6 turned and burned up the hill. So now he'll take over third spot for the moment from the 22. Hannah, Matthew Skoltz, 72% of the time on the podium here, is looking good.
Yeah, talking to Skoltz, he said it's his first time out here on the Supersport, and early in the weekend they were pretty far off on the engine braking side of things, so it held him back a bit, but they opened it up and it made a difference. Otherwise, he feels like he has really consistent pace. He knows that he doesn't have as much power as the 750 or the V2, so like you said at the beginning of the race, he can't get drafted too early on, and right now he's really just trying to close that gap there.
He's trying to close the gap. He's past Blake Davis and pulled the pin. What's going on, JP?
Did you see how fast he went over the curbing over by the museum corner? We'll see if we can key in on that next time he goes through there. But he pulled 3 or 4 bike lengths on Blake as he went up over the top of those curbings. And this is where height grade can be a big advantage for him. When he goes over those, he can use his legs a little bit like springs to go over those curbings. And that was really where he gained 3 or 4 bikes. Like I said, he gets down to 27. Timing's not up on our board. Here we go. 27.1 that time. He matched the leader's pace. So with 8 laps to go, Matthew Skoltz finds his way through on Blake Davis, and he is set off, just like you said. The lead to the front guys is 2.4 as you see them guys going up over the rise down there. And they come down here into turn 5. There's Ty Scott. Then we got Dave Anthony. How about Roberto Tamburino, Greg, in 7th on the MV Agusta? We got to talk about him a little bit. He's got World Superbike experience. He's raced in the 125 championship in 2000, 2006, and 7. So our MV Agusta, Roberto Tamburini, doing an awesome job right now on the back end of David Anthony.
So number 42 out of Italy on that Equity MV Agusta by MP13 Racing. That's the F3RR. Good to see that in the championship full time. And there's Corey Alexander. Last time we saw Corey in race number 2 at Road Atlanta in wet conditions, he put that thing on the podium. Corey, one of our tallest riders in the field, still working on getting used to the fitment of that motorcycle. And Jay, for the 23 on the Rahal Ducati Moto with roller die informing, I actually got a moment to sit on that motorcycle this morning. And what's interesting about it is because Corey's so tall and the way they put their foot pegs back on that bike, it was roomy enough for my knees, but on the Ducati, you sit on top of the motorcycle. Unlike that 85 GSXR 750, it's a vastly different seating position as Jake Lewis on the 85 gets in position. But Jay, on the Suzuki, you sit much more inside the motorcycle as opposed to on top of the bike on the Altus Motorsports GSXR 750. So Corey's still adapting to the Ducati Panigale V2.
Yeah, and those two guys are the tallest guys in our class, in this class. So for both of them, they're trying to now run down this little group of 3. You see Teague Hobbs up there, and like we have said, he is actually running 12th with that 5-second penalty. So he's got to just latch onto the back of Dave Anthony and Roberto Tamburini and try to just stretch away from these behind him. And you can see Kayla just back there behind Mason now. So she is starting to make a little bit of a run forward as well. There she is right there, Kayla Yakov. And, you know, this year for her, Greg, I mean, what a team she's on, what a good job she's done so far. She's had a lot of pace, and I think that the pace, she's going to come good here at the end as far as pace goes as well. And, you know, get herself another solid top 10 and keep trying to make improvements for tomorrow.
Oh, without question. Yeah. I think a lot of people were kind of thinking, whoa, if it rains here, especially at Barber Motorsports Park with the available grip in the rain on full rain tires, a lot of us were expecting Kayla Yakov to be on the podium. Her legs up.
I think that's just because she's a little bit short, Greg, maybe. She's off the inside of the bike. I don't think she's letting anybody know anything. And, yeah, she's head down the front straightaway, and we're going to go back to this battle at the front. These guys are just continuing to go 27-1 after 27-1. The only guy in the 26s, the guy in 3rd, Matthew Skoltz. He's 2.5 back of the leader, 2.2 back a second. So Matthew's chipping away, just not quite as fast as he would probably like.
So to give you that idea, earlier on in the race, PJ Jacobsen went 126.978. So he's only 2/10 off the fastest time that he's gone. So it's not like PJ is just on a camping trip back here.
No.
He's definitely pushing very hard.
Yeah, Gerardo's just done a great job. He's just hitting his marks, just looking out in front of himself right now and probably looking at his lap timer and just trying to continue to hit these laps. consistently. Ty Scott, by the way, was also another rider in the 26s at a 26.9. Him and Blake Davis are together on track now battling. This guy has pulled some, what is it, Greg, 4 seconds, 2.3 seconds up the road from them. So Schulte there just trying his best to get back in this fight. And I don't know, PJ's just back there playing it cool. Looks fairly easy for PJ right now to be where he is at. So we're going to have to continue to watch and see how the strategy plays out for him.
Might be a situation for the 15 bike, Jay, where he got up there and said, wow, this pace is really high. If I push and get to the front, I'm not going to have the pace to pull away, because keep in mind, we did break a track record at a 125.742 in qualifying. The old race record was Richie Escalante in 2020 at a 126.651. We've gone 126.660 by Blake Davis, nearly breaking the track record. So the pace up front is super fast.
Yeah, it is. And the 26.9 that you see from Maxi Girardo this deep into the race, obviously with 5 to go, these guys are just consistently running those 26.9, 27.1s like the whole time. So,
and that's the fastest that Girardo's gone in the race, and he just did his fastest lap. So it's the first time that our race leader dipped into the 26 range.
And that's doing it on your own. That's just not feeling the pressure. That's just doing his thing. And I've seen these guys swap going down into turn 5. The last 2 times Ty Scott's gone through on Blake Davis. Blake Davis has been able to get down that back straightaway, cut it back up underneath, and get down into turn 6 ahead of the 70 of Ty Scott. So these guys are battling hard right now for 4th. And just looking up, Blake Davis did his fastest 3rd split of the race in the last lap. And that's the 3rd and 4th split where they're actually at right now.
Certainly from a race fan perspective, as you and I are, Jason, looking at these top 3 motorcycles ahead of this battle for 4th. It's Girardo on a Suzuki, PJ on a Ducati, and Schulte on a Yamaha. We love to see the parity here in this next generation super sport category as it continues to develop.
Matthews got it under 2 seconds now, and I say that because in probably about another half a lap or so, they're going to start to come into some back markers, are the leaders. As we look back here, this is where Ty Scott has been going up underneath Blake Davis every lap for the last 2 laps as they come down into turn 5. This time, he's not going to be able to quite get there to do it. So on this particular lap now, he's got the inside tight line on the exit, as it looks like there's been a pass for the lead. So do we actually have a mistake from Girardo, or did PJ just decide this is the time to go and get by? And now, this is kind of where you start to think, Greg, maybe he sees those back markers ahead that I had mentioned. There's a group of 4 of them that they should be able to catch either by the end of this lap or definitely going into the next. And Greg, you know the old adage, you always want to be the first one to those back markers so you can kind of dictate where things are going. That said, PJ probably saw on his board as well that Matthew Schulte is definitely closing in, so it's time for him to pull the pin.
One thing to keep note of is that Maxi Girardo chose the R0 front tire, where BJ Jacobson chose the Dunlop R3. The lower the number, the softer the compound. And so there might be a little bit of something going on with Girardo on the front. The rear is the same, but also being a GSXR 750 versus a Ducati Panigale V2.
Greg. It was a mistake.
Yeah.
Girardo ran wide in turn 5. Now the next time these guys get down into turn 5, you're going to see right here, see that group of 4 in the bottom right-hand part of your screen. They are going to be catching these guys in a horrible spot. They're going to be catching them at the bottom of turn 5, and then they're going to go down this back straightaway, and it's going to get to the point where Matthew Schulte now is on the back of them. So here you go, Greg, as the riders do such a good job for these guys getting out of the way. The other 2 are still up the road, but Matthew Schulte with a 26.7 and a fastest first split of the race. These guys are going to get bulked up right here. Matthew Schulte will be right up behind them as they exit this museum corner right now.
And of course, blue flags are flying for these riders that are getting lapped. You'll see that every now and again, signaling to them that, hey, the leaders are coming through, and that's why you see these riders just kind of waving the leaders on through. So all of a sudden, just like that, after the mistake of Girardo, who had done a flawless job of leading this race, Matthew Schulte has caught this group, and now, with about 2.5 laps to go, it's down to these 3.
But it was a mistake, wasn't it? As Matthew Schulte now is going to have a look. That's a hard place to do it. But Maxi Girardo, all he did was make one little mistake, and now Matthew Schulte is going to stuff it up underneath him. Girardo should have the line as they get down to the bottom, but Matthew does a nice job of getting that R6 out of that right-hander into that tight left. He's going to block any idea that Girardo is going to have as far as going back by him. We got 2 laps to go, Greg. Our 3 leaders are all at the front. 27.7 to a 27.1. Girardo with his lap 28.0, and that's just going to be because of the back markers and the fact that Schultz was able to get by him. So does Matthew Schultz have any tire underneath him right now to try to chase down the leader here and do something with PJ?
Down into turn 5 we go, a favorite braking spot for Matthew Schultz, who looks at Barber Motorsports Park as his second home track. He lives in Georgia, does the South African. And a look at it on the left-hand side, Jay, and that was a good move, and you see Gerardo just lift slightly.
Well, you can see that Matthew, obviously, there's a reason why he's been on the podium here 72% of the time of his races, and that is because he knows this place very well. He's comfortable, and he knows what he has underneath him as far as the motorcycle today. That R6, very nimble and working very well for him. PJ just looks like he's got that little bit extra pace as of right this second. So we'll see when they get through this complex here. This is a fast left-hander off the back. And then we saw Matt very quick through here. As you can see him draw up on the back of PJ as they come through this big, long right. He may try to do the same thing here if he's close enough. PJ's got to keep that door closed, and he doesn't.
Matthew Schultz for the lead. He's going to stand PJ up for a moment, but PJ's cagey. Is he going to try to go back at it? No. But now we'll see what the Ducati Panigale V2 has in terms of power. Schultz with a great run onto the front straightaway as we expect that white flag to fly. So 1 lap to go, and it's Schultz on the Strack Racing Yamaha R6 who takes over the lead and trying to put some distance between himself and PJ.
And the big advantage right now that Matthew has is that PJ has not been able to follow Matthew at all. He doesn't know where he could be weaker or stronger. As you see, Matthew is going to get past this back marker, go to the left. He's going to protect a little bit as he goes down here into turn 5. And Greg, really, once they go over this curbing at the end of this straightaway, Matthew's got that last half of a lap dialed. Look at the R6 as it rips out of turn number 5 now. He's going to protect the right side and not allow PJ to go down the inside of him through turn 6. But watch over this curbing. The speed that Matthew has over this thing is so quick, and he gets that bike in, turn, and he'll have pulled another bike length or 2 on the exit. Look at the gap he's pulled.
The master at Barber Motorsports Park in the Superbike class, now taking his skill set to Supersport, but PJ has not given up. PJ Jacobson trying everything he can to get Matthew Schultz, but Schultz knows all the tricks here at Barber Motorsports Park. Expect him to protect that inside line, and there's that drive up and over the hill. Schultz down into the last couple of corners. Is he going to be able to hang on? Wow, put a couple bikes in there as Schultz and that Yamaha R6, it looks like he's got it in hand. The final corner, onto the front straightaway we go, and behind the bubble at full throttle, Matthew Schultz will come to the line, and the Strack Racing Yamaha R6 rider takes the checkered flag and the victory ahead of PJ Jacobson. Gerardo in 3rd spot. What a race for Matthew Schultz. He is pumped about that one.
This is a guy that didn't have a ride. Greg, he had nothing after the end of last year. Look at PJ giving him some gratitude there. Tremendous effort from the 11. He just kept digging, Greg, in the middle part of that race. Once he got past Blake Davis, he opened that gap, and he just had to keep digging. Let's throw a shout out for Maxi Gerardo. Starts from pole position, gets his first podium here at Barber, and that whole top pro racing team should be very happy.
So Matthew Schultz, another win at Barber Motorsports Park. I believe his 3rd here, and he ups his percentage. We'll talk to him when we get back to Birmingham, Alabama.
And we'll continue here at Barber Motorsports Park as we watch Matthew Schultz come around in celebration. Roger, as we watched that race unfold, it came down to the closing stages, and he certainly earned the right to celebrate this one.
Yeah, and I think Matt, using his experience, he knew where to pick his spots and was able to make his passes and was really strong in that last part of the track, and it looked like the Yamaha really changed directions well. But for Matt, it's kind of what we expected. We knew he was going to be tough in the Supersport class. He comes in, you get the relief, the celebration. You think you're going Superbike racing, and then you're not, and then the last minute you get to go Supersport, racing, and you don't know what's happening. And to come here and new team, it's just a huge relief. So for Matt, great race, great passes by him. He set those up early. I think when he got behind, he knew where he wanted to be. And when he caught those guys, when he caught PJ and Max, he didn't follow him for a single corner. He attacked as soon as he got there, knowing that he needed to be in the front of those guys.
You can see he is still so pumped up as he is making his way around the track to get into the podium area. But we talked about it before this race with he and his crew chief Ed Sullivan, that they really were just waiting, and they wanted to be conservative at the start of this season and then build into something that's a little more powerful. But today, with the nature of this racetrack, there aren't a whole lot. There's not a lot of straightaways, so he didn't need all of the power that's available on the Yamaha. We saw Blake Davis, for example, was a lot faster in a straight line than what Matthew was, but he didn't need it today.
No, he didn't need it. It just looked like the bike handled really well, you know, a little bit better than the other guys. And there's a lot of changing directions here at Barber Motorsports Park, and I feel like that's where Matt was making up a lot of his times, like through that chicane and turn 12 and 10. The bike just seemed like it was a little bit more nimble for him, and he could carry a lot more speed through there. And Matt's a heck of a rider as well. And, you know, we see Max Girardo there. He should be so happy with that ride. He's going to be disappointed to lead so much and then not get that win. You know, we talked about he was 4 seconds off at Atlanta of the win. Today, only 1 second.
Yeah, certainly a big improvement for him as he finds himself on the podium for the first time. The cool thing, though, watching as Matthew Skoltz came down pit lane to pull over into the podium area was Superbike. Riders are all out there ready to go, and he was able to get congratulated by all of them as they, you know, reached out, gave him a high five and a congratulations. He raced with those competitors for a number of years. You see him celebrating here with his new team for the year. These fans here at Barber Motorsports Park, they certainly know who Matthew Skoltz is coming into this race in the Superbike category at a 72% podium rate. So it's certainly a track that he has a lot of experience on, but a lot of success, and that's just rolled right on over into Supersport.
Yeah, he knew exactly where that podium was. He'd been there quite a few times. I think you've seen all the other riders out there. For one, they respect Matt for, you know, success he's already had, but also knowing what all he went through this offseason. I mean, every rider can feel that, you know what I mean? The stress and the worry and not knowing what's next, and then come out here and get a win.
Yeah, if you haven't been following along since the start of the season, remember Matthew Skoltz was in Superbike with Westby Racing. They announced late in the offseason that team was going to go away, and it left Matthew wondering what he was going to do. There aren't a lot of seats available on bikes here in MotoAmerica. There's a lot of competition, a lot of really talented riders, and luckily for him, he was able to find a seat here with Strack Racing.
And then you go back to the struggles at Road Atlanta. That first day, they didn't even get a lap in, you know, and that just kind of adds to the more of the, man, what's going on? And for Matt, I think he showed his experience. He just stayed cool through it all. And even today, you know, through that race when he lost touch of the leaders, he just chipped away at it and put himself there at the end.
He's now in position. You see PJ Jacobsen. He fought hard. He led laps and maybe thought that this one was his, but right there at the end, Matthew just had a little bit more saved up.
Yeah, Matt just was a little better toward the end of the race, and for PJ, he's going to be disappointed when you're leading there the last couple laps and somebody gets you at the end. It's you know, and you just, from the first race, you won both races, and you come here and then you get second. You're a little bit disappointed.
We will hear from our top 3 finishers. Here is the behind-the-scenes MotoAmerica Live Plus coverage continues. Let's get down there.
Celebration for the 11, Matthew Skoltz and the Strack Racing Yamaha R6. And what a race we had as Skoltz took his time to chip away at the rest of the field and make the move when he needed to. Let's take a look at those results, because so many stories in this one, Jason Pridmore, including the emergence of Maxi Girardo. But it's Skoltz by 0.2 of a second over Girardo, and then Ty Scott in a battle with Blake Davis. He gets the nod there. And how about Tamburini on the MV in 6th?
Super impressive there. Melissa Parrott should be very proud of that effort. David Anthony, Stefano Mesa, and Jake Lewis round out your top 9. Greg, I want to make a quick thing real quick. Alfonso Linares did start that race, and he ended up a very quality 13th on a Suzuki, where we saw him in Atlanta on a Ducati.
All right, let's get to winner's circle. Hannah has our winner, who's upped his race podium percentage, right, Hannah?
He has. He's gone from 72 to 74%. 14 of the last 19 race starts, he's finished on the podium, and this is his 3rd career victory here at Barber Motorsports Park. Matthew, not quite the race start that you were hoping for today, but you chipped away at that gap slowly but surely and ultimately waged your way to the front. How was that tire feeling underneath you that you felt you had enough in the bike to make those moves at the end?
Yeah, my start's suck. That's definitely the weakest part of my game now, something that I need to definitely work on. The first couple of laps, I knew that the other guys had a little bit more drive coming out of the corner, so I just had to bide my time. But I got shuffled a little bit further back, and these two guys next to me opened up a pretty decent gap, and I didn't think I was able to close it down. But I could see I was slowly catching him a couple tenths. I did get a little bit lucky. 1 or 2 markers held them up, but I mean, hey, sometimes it works for you. Sometimes you get screwed over. But overall, just a big thank you to Track Racing, Yamaha, 4SR Leathers, HSC helmets, all the people that have helped me get back in this championship and show that I still have the talent to be one of the top guys. Yeah, thank you to everyone.
That's kind of my next question for you is, you know, over the winter you thought perhaps that you wouldn't be in the MotoAmerica paddock, and now you've got your first victory of the season only 2 rounds in. How are you feeling about the days ahead?
Makes me feel good, you know. I don't think that we're at the full potential of the R6 yet, so I think that we're only going to get better. I'm sure everyone else will too, but just looking forward to the second race later on and trying to put this R6 back up on the top of the box again.
Congrats, Matthew Skoltz, guys.
The winning feeling never goes away, and it's the 3rd time. I mean, it kind of depends on how you look at it, Jay, because he did win a superbike race here at Barber Motorsports Park on a stock 1000 during the class when they were both together. So it's kind of like 2 wins in one.
Yeah.
So is it his 3rd win here or his 4th win? We don't know. But PJ Jacobsen had a good run today, and he's down with Hannah.
Greg, a very solid performance from PJ Jacobsen, finishing 2nd place today. You've never ridden with Maxi Girardo, and you had a front row seat to kind of see what you could learn from riding around him today. Is there anything that really stood out or anything that will benefit you moving forward tomorrow?
Yeah, he was actually great. He was riding really consistent and stuff, so I was actually super impressed. You know, he didn't make like many mistakes at all. And then I had a rough Friday yesterday, so yeah, I was kind of like a little bit doubtful going into the race, just with my energy and just what happened yesterday being put in the guardrail. So my side of the team, Tom and Mickey, they put the bike together, and everything's been running really good. I can't thank the whole Rahal Ducati Moto team for doing a fantastic job. Richie's doing great over there. You know, Graham and Brittany and just everybody who puts this whole program together. Ben, just I can't even thank enough people that are on the team to make this whole thing possible and run so smoothly. But yeah, I just want to thank like all of our main sponsors, Expo as well, Rahal Paint Protect, just Elf. Everybody that makes it happen. I'm just super happy to be up here, and it's really good and consistent for the championship.
A good battle with Matthew Skoltz. Take us through it at the end there. How was that tire feeling underneath you?
Yeah, so I didn't expect Matt to come by me there because I thought it was just us two. But yeah, I started losing the front a lot, like with the last 3 laps, and it kind of like upset my rhythm. Also with the lappers there. But I think the more of the problem was the front tire for me. I was not, it was sliding a lot. So yeah, I congrats to him and his whole team for doing a great job.
Thanks, PJ. Guys.
Yeah, Jay, and that's really it too. You know, when you have a new team, a new bike, and PJ back in Supersport, and you look at it, sometimes you're going to have those growing pains.
100%. He just said that was a great interview from PJ there. He really gave us the details of what he felt, what he saw. Yesterday, this young guy was on the ground, and like you said, Greg, up against the guardrail. So just happy to see him do it. Hannah.
A really great day for Maxi Girardo, a career first MotoAmerica podium for the Uruguayan. Really incredible race today for you. You led most of it until you made that mistake at the end there. Are you happy with a 3rd place finish today, or are you wanting more out of this and hoping for a win tomorrow?
Sí. Fue una gran carrera, hacía mucho calor en comparación a lo que fue el time attack de hoy, pero muy feliz con el resultado. Llegar en el podio es muy importante y agradecer a todo el equipo por todo el trabajo que hizo hasta ahora, que fue excelente. El time attack P1, ahora un P3, y bueno, muy feliz y agradecido con toda la gente que hace posible que esté acá.
So he said that at the race it was really hard because it was too hot right now, but he's so grateful and he's happy with the results right now. Now a P3, and he's so grateful with all the team for the support and what they're doing right now.
Definitely a great weekend for Maxi Girardo, and there's more to come, guys.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to seeing what he's learned and what the team's going to be able to translate into a result for tomorrow. Our coverage continues for Barber Motorsports Park after this as the top 3 get ready to celebrate on the podium.
We will continue coverage here on MotoAmerica Live Plus as we can watch these three riders get up onto the podium to celebrate. But listening to what PJ said, Roger, is that he was sitting behind Maxi and nobody made very many mistakes.
And that one mistake that Max cost him down into turn 5 is when PJ was able to really close that gap. And just watching the lap times, I was just super impressed with Max, able to, the whole race just be so consistent. Every lap was within a tenth. And I think for him, it's just a huge learning for him. Just those last couple laps, he dropped off a couple tenths, and those guys were able to maintain. And I think for him, he's able to see that, and he's going to be there for the win tomorrow. But it was really impressive for Max to be able to get in there. And, man, the first time you lead a race, it is really hard. It's really hard when you're setting the pace. You have somebody, not only that, every time he came around and looked at his pit board coming up the front straightaway, it said +0. So it's hard.
So all the riders are now up there accepting their hardware for this hard-fought battle. Coverage is going to continue to wrap up the Supersport race.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is brought to you by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Beautiful Barber Motorsports Park, and a good look at the weather conditions here. Boy, Matthew Skoltz was so pumped about that one, JP, and you really talked about it. You've been in the position before. No ride over the winter. Come here at the beginning of the season and do this.
Yeah, get a bad start, right? That's what he did. So, yeah, Matthew got a bad start. Exactly what he just told Hannah down there, but made a little bit of hard work for himself. Actually, Gerardo did a great job. You see him take the lead, started to pull away a little bit. PJ ended up going with him in these highlights. You'll see these two guys getting out front. Matthew was on a charge. He kept making this pass, and then Ty Scott would go back by. I'm not sure exactly what that gesture is either. I didn't see that. I'm glad you caught that, Greg. Ty Scott would make a mistake down into turn 1 and run on with the track. Matthew would make this pass on Blake Davis and just start to get away. And he was so good the last half lap of the race. Maxi Girard finally made a mistake. I mean, the guy made one mistake the whole race, and that was all it needed. With a couple back markers, Skoltz was back in the fight here. And with 2 laps to go, he was able to make the same pass again as you saw him do on Gerardo in that big long right on PJ Jacobsen. That was a big surprise for PJ on the 15. Matthew Skoltz would go ahead and take the win. His championship, though, Greg, is going to be blown wide open, but it's going to come right through PJ Jacobsen, I think, because he's going to be the guy. This guy's going to have some tracks where he's amazing at, and he's going to have to just do whatever he can to keep him close.
Podium celebrations as the team gets the #1 and the rider gets that #1 trophy as well. And these riders will be spraying champagne soon. We'll continue our coverage from Barber Motorsports Park after this.
As we continue the coverage here at Barber Motorsports Park, I want to go back to one of the things that Matthew Skoltz said there also, Roger, was that he said his starts are just terrible. That's where he thinks he can make up the most ground. But go back a couple of years when he was racing in Superbikes. This has been several years ago. He was struggling with his starts. They actually took the bike out to the drag strip so that he could just practice starts, go down in a straight line, come back around and do it all again. What can he do before the race tomorrow?
I think just try to get used to the clutch a little bit more on the R6. With the Superbike, you have electronics and things like that can kind of help on the start. And I think he's just really worried about using too much of the clutch. And even at Road Atlantic, didn't get the great starts. And it's just the thing he has to do is just try to work with his team and figure out what he can do, because it almost cost him the win today. That bad start and getting shuffling back there. He was able to rebound. But, going forward, it just makes your race a lot harder whenever you got to come from 6th or 7th every single race. So just try to sit down with the crew and try to figure out what can we do or what can I do to make it better.
You see all of the fans that are camped out around this racetrack. Coverage is going to continue right here.
Back here in Birmingham, Alabama, Barber Motorsports Park after race #1 of our Supersport Series. And Jay, you mentioned the championship being blown wide open. So PJ Jacobsen has 16 points now over Skoltz, Corey Alexander, and Gerardo making his way up the leaderboard. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that as we are early days in this championship. That's 3 races of 18 scheduled for the season. But does everything go through PJ Jacobsen? That's really the question, because we know that PJ, he's been in World Supersport on a middleweight bike. He's been here on a middleweight bike. He went to Superbike, finished third in the championship. But PJ is incredibly talented and incredibly fast. And the other thing too, Jason, is that we know the Ducati Panigale V2 won the championship in Supersport the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, no question. And with a guy that's as seasoned as PJ is, I expect him to be at the front all year long. And the reason I said what I said before we went to break is because there will be some races I think are going to be a little bit challenging for Matthew. When we go to MotoAmerica, I think the GSX-R 750s and the Ducatis are going to have a little bit of legs. The R6 is great. It's nimble. You saw what he was able to do today on it. And I think places like the Ridge are going to suit Matthew. Laguna Seca might suit Matthew. Some of those other tracks that we've seen him do well at before on Superbike. But I think that the number 15 is going to be the guy that he's going to consistently have to beat all year. And when he has Ty Scott start winning races, and I think Maxi Girardi's going to win some races too this year. So it's going to be a tight-knit year, but I think it's going to be PJ. If he stays consistent and keeps doing what he does, I think that's going to be the guy that they're going to have to try to beat.
The other thing to think about, too, is that for PJ Jacobsen, he has 2 very fast teammates that if he needs them towards the end of the season, could definitely help him wrap up this championship. Well, that was Supersport Race number 1, and how do you like that one as Matthew Skulls has a come-from-behind victory and does it at the end of the race, an outstanding job. Well, for Handle Open, Jason Pridmore, I'm Greg White. We get to do it again for race number 2. We can't wait to see you back here in Birmingham, Alabama, as MotoAmerica Supersport class comes from Barber Motorsports Park once again. See you then.